For its second time, the Social Good Summit Kigali took place at the National Library. The Social Good Summit is a 3-day conference held annually during United Nations General Assembly Week. The theme for this year's Social Good Summit was #2030Now. On the agenda, 2 guests of honor, the UN Resident Coordinator and Rwanda's Minister of Youth and ICT, first gave their remarks. In his welcome address, the UN Resident Coordinator talked about how new technologies, ICT, play a huge role in eradicating poverty. He recognized the efforts and achievements of Rwanda in technology as one of its development agenda, especially for the young generation.
The Honorable Minister of Youth and ICT, Honorable Jean-Philbert Nsengimana, our distinguished panelists. Today is the second day of the Social Good Summit 2013, a 3-day conference held annually between 22nd and 24th of September during the United Nations General Assembly Week. I am proud to say that for the second year in a row, Rwanda is one of the global hubs of this important event, which is being live streamed and can be viewed anywhere on the planet. The Social Good Summit offers a unique opportunity to discuss, among other things, how to eradicate extreme poverty, which is at the center of current development debate. It is also at the heart of the mandate of the United Nations system. And I'm also happy to note that it's also at the heart of the development agenda for Rwanda. I think last week, President Kagame said categorically that our preoccupation should be poverty eradication, not even reduction. So the theme for the 2013 Social Good Summit is #2030Now, which will challenge participants to imagine the world we would like to have in 2030 and share solutions. We believe that we stand at a remarkable time in history. It is now possible to share ideas across the globe on a scale that we could never have imagined before. In a very short period of time, as you know, the internet has had a tremendous impact on the way we live. It has democratized access to information on a scale never before thought achievable. The emerging information society driven by new technologies is an area where young people have an edge. Young people are often the leading innovators in the use and spread of information and communication technologies, as you know. Today I've been introduced to many young Rwandans just a few minutes ago who have been at the forefront of this revolution.
The keynote speech was given by Rwanda's Minister of Youth and ICT,
the resident coordinator of the UN family, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll talk about 5 shifts that I see that should happen so that we can make a smarter use of ICTs and enable some of the innovations that have allowed the likes of Bill Gates or Zuckerberg that the resident coordinator was talking about, that puts young people at the forefront of the revolution that the world is going through. One, I think it's a shift in where we put our investments. In the past, we used to put a lot of investment in infrastructure. Today, we need to shift to services. Secondly, is a shift that needs to be led by the private sector. This might be self-evident when we are talking about developed countries, but in developing countries, governments have been playing a driving role. And I think it's time, especially in Rwanda, so I think it's time to leave the lead to the private sector. The third shift it's a shift in focus towards the rural areas. Investments have happened where it made the most economic sense up to date. And the rural areas of Africa have tended to be forgotten. So I think there is a market in the rural areas. There is a market at the bottom of the pyramid. It just takes a different approach to realize the value still locked up in those markets. But also, we need to think regional and interconnect countries and continents. The fourth shift needs to happen in the education sector. We've been putting a lot of resources in education, but as far as transition from education to employment is concerned, there hasn't really been enough effort. And beyond education to employment, we need to go to self-employment or entrepreneurship. And then finally, is a shift from ICT development to ICT for development. There has been so much in terms of understanding how you develop ICT systems, but how you link those systems to socioeconomic transformation hasn't quite been understood well. So if I have to summarize what I've just said in one word, I would say that it's a shift from connect to transform. Those are some of the policy shifts, and for those who have followed, each shift starts with a letter. When you put the letters together, it forms a word called spread. Services, private sector, rural areas, education, and development.
Following the speeches, it was time for the debate. The interaction and discussion between a panel made of young and talented Rwandans who are working in technology innovation areas and groups of students from 4 universities, namely ISAE, KIST, INATEC, and the National University of Rwanda, via Google Hangout. During the debate, questions were asked to the panelists, who at their turn answered them by sharing their own experiences and ideas.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your invite, and to the panelists that everyone has just spoken. But I have a question. That I represent a certain section of the society that doesn't know what you're talking about. And we're talking about social good, innovation and technology. How do you get it to me, the person who has no idea what you're talking about? How do you make me understand the innovations that you've come up with, and how do I use them, how do I utilize them in order to better myself, to move away from this position to the other position?
I think that's what the minister mentioned earlier, where he said that we need to move from ICT development to ICT for development, where ICT becomes a tool to achieve socio-economic development. And I think that that's what, for example, for my case at K-Lab, that's what we always tell people, that if you want people to embrace technology, make sure that they understand what is it.
2 stories. 2 days ago, I was talking to a bunch of hotel managers. I was trying to encourage them to increase their broadband, their connectivity, so that people can get a faster access to internet. And we were trying to explain that capacity into megabytes. They were looking at me like this. You know, after like 15 minutes, I realized that nobody had a clue what I was saying. So I switched from megabytes to kilos. I said 1 megabyte per second, it's like 1 kilo of internet. You know, I think we need to be better at communicating. At the end of that Smart Rwanda days, we agreed that one of the components should be smart communication. And as far as enabling innovations from other people who are outside the technology area, I think it's important. We are missing out big time on the amount of innovation we could be getting from people who are not coming from the technology area, but those innovations would need some support of technology. I'd like to get something more tangible that would come from this forum as a solution that was created here, something that we can do tomorrow to start bridging this huge gap, which is wasting a lot of opportunity for us.
Technology innovations, their effectiveness and barriers were at the center of the question. When asked about the good impact of 1 laptop per child program on kids in Rwanda, Akariza Kezagara, the CEO of Shaking Sun, said it in these words.
If I can speak from my own experience, from a very young age, I had the opportunity to use a computer, so from a very young age I became very comfortable with technology and the idea that I can experiment and create things. So I feel that that had a big impact on me. And as Claude mentioned, the fact that in Rwanda they're dispersing all these laptops, that's going to have a huge impact on this generation. Just them feeling comfortable using technology. What you find in some of the older generations is sometimes they're afraid of technology. I once worked with a much older gentleman. He didn't know how to send emails. He didn't know how to create like a PowerPoint project, and yet he was the head of this institution. So before I could even train him on how to manage the website, I had to teach him the very basics. And he said that prior to this, he had never been interested in training because he always felt intimidated whenever he saw the computer screen. So if we can address that at a very young age and do that across an entire generation, I think that's just one step towards encouraging future innovations.
The panelists cited also Twitter SMS, e-learning, Teacher Self-Learning Academy are other effective innovations in Rwanda. With what concerned the barriers and challenges, panelists urged young women who are still few in technology areas to work hard.
The trainings that we have, when people register, every 2 days we have about 120 people that register, and only 30 are girls and 90 are men. So it's much worse there. And so one of the things that we need at our centers is that every class should have equal gender, so 50 girls, 50 female and 50 male. We try to do something to help the girls in the rural areas to be able to speak up, but yes, people are still very afraid, especially when it comes to ICT. It's still a bit very complicated, but it's good to have role models, as we're saying. And I think we have Clarissa and Akaliza and some other girls that are role models to the other girls that are coming up today.
Not only the issue of small number of females in technology was highlighted, but also the sustainability of technology innovations and programs in rural areas.
Again, I think education is key to everything, but also I believe in partnership between either the academia, the government, and the private sector. I will also emphasize on having frameworks that allow brilliant students to at least come up with something.
When we talk about the universal primary education, we have to think about teachers. We have to think about those people, the only source sometimes that they have. The UK government and the government of Rwanda through the FID, 26 projects have been introduced to introduce technology in the schools. One of them is the project that I'm reading, the Teacher Self-Learning Academy, which aims at re-engineering the way we train our teachers. We don't have necessarily to tell them to come every time in Kigali when we have only one trainer who will go around the world. But we can make instructional videos that can be delivered to the teachers through some handheld chip devices.
When we focus now on this Millennium Development Village that I had to evaluate, you'll notice that each time you provide a 2G, 3G coverage in a certain village, development actions are going to be springing up. This might be initiated by the country itself or by people doing their own businesses. I've seen the circle villages, I've seen dispensaries, I've seen medical and e-health information being shared and centralized using IT and the telecom networks. And I would say that Rwanda is pretty much ahead of most of the countries that I visited, and it's something we should be proud of. And if it applied across the country and some other countries, I think it will help to push and to realize those NDG goals.
In conclusion, to know where Rwanda wants to be after 2015 at a digital scale, panelists gave their views, which did not differ a lot. That there need to be affordability on ICTs, innovations and programs for the population, so that technology may be fruitful and positively change lives.